something in the chat box, maybe about how you're feeling about Passover turning. So think about like even just one word that describes sort of your current feeling right now about Passover, which is in a week, a little less than a week. Just one word that describes that. So go to your chat box and try to write that one word. And that'll also give you a chance to test out the chat, but also stressed, disappointed, disappointment. Really creative. Good. I'll take that. Thanks, Maddie. Excited. I will actually disappointed. I like the balance that's going on here. Learning, lonely and pissy. Yes, I understand that. Beginnings, it seems it will be less cooking. I agree. We have to always look for the silver linings, friends. And that is definitely one. Happy, anxious.
Phyllis, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So I wrote my words, but how do I send them to you?
You should just hit enter. It should send them.
Oh, enter. Duh.
Oh, there it went. Yay. Trying to have gratitude for technology bringing us together on Passover, and then Sharon's, which she got through, excited and worried. I definitely feel like there's a lot of push-pull this year. A lot of people who are just not sure what that's going to look like. And I think that that's important because I really want to acknowledge that this is different. And I'm actually fewer leftovers. Thank you. Yes. Although I like leftovers, I'm one of those. So, but I will say that that I can see sort of. I got a little excited on one side, and a little bit I'm really sad on the other side. And I think that that those are definitely two pieces of this puzzle that I think that we're gonna all be feeling this year. Okay, so I feel like we're kind of mostly in. I'm seeing a slowdown in my waiting room. So distanced. That is a really big one. Lynn, thank you for sharing that word. I think that we keep talking about, we even use that word, right? Social distancing, the idea that we're distant from each other. I'd like to sort of figure out ways we can even feel more connected or closer, just in a different way, right? A lot of this is really a reframing for all of us. Okay, so I want you to continue to use the chat box. I'm hoping I can manage both my screen and anybody who comes in the waiting room, so I'll keep an eye on that. So first I want to share, I'm going to share some stuff in this document that I'm going to work from. I'll be happy to share it with you at the end. And to put that, to give that to everybody. So I'm just going to start at the beginning and go through, and feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question or write it in the chat box if you feel like I haven't. So everyone can see my screen now, and you see this. This is a picture of Passover 2020. Who wants to lead Dayenu? And everybody's sitting and looking at their own computers from their own computer screen. And so I think a lot of us are trying to make joy out of this and a little bit of a joke. We'll see how that feels at the end. But I want to start by saying, listen, it's okay not to be okay. Rabbi Steve gave that sermon, and it's still so true, right? It's okay to mourn what isn't happening. It's okay to say, wow, this year's Seder is different, and this year's Seder isn't the Seder that I usually have. And it's okay to do the bare minimum. There's this really beautiful piece that one of my colleagues wrote that's going around that say, it's okay to have a shvach Seder, right? It's okay to have a Seder that just isn't what you would normally do, isn't your best foot forward. I already said, I'm already regretting not being one of those people who keeps the shank bone in the freezer from year to year, because we are just not going to have a shank bone on our Seder plate this year because we don't have one. And I'm not going to go to the trouble of seeking one out because I feel like I have other things and so many other people have things to worry about. So we're going to be dealing with things, and it's okay to say, this isn't what I expected, and this isn't how I usually do it. So with that, I want to really have that caveat at the beginning, because I don't want anyone to feel like this conversation is really about me telling you what you must do. In fact, if anything, I think it's the opposite. It's me really helping to give you permission to find a space for yourself that feels like it fulfills some of what the holiday is, but also gives you space and permission to be okay with not being okay. So with that being said, I really want you to take away any assumptions that you might have about your Seder. I want you to really sort of find a way to really think about your why you're doing this, what your goal is. And for me, I know that's really about telling stories, asking questions, and making memories. And when I said that I was sad, I'm totally sad to not be together in person with the people that I love. But I'm also kind of excited because I've invited to our Seder, our family Seder this year, family that wasn't planning to come in this year. They weren't planning to be with us. And so I'm actually excited to be able to see their faces and to know that in some way we're celebrating together. So I'm looking for, as I always say, a silver lining, but I'm also really thinking about what my goal is and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So what do I think that you need for Seder this year? I think your ultimate thing that you need is flexibility. And I think we should all look at it with a sense of playfulness. The more we can have, the better. Because if we can play with our Seder and we can really think about ways to just enjoy and be creative and say, well, that's going to work or that's not going to work. It's a lesson that we're really learning throughout all of this. We're used to really working hard and creating a really professional, well done package of the things that we do. We consider ourselves to be very high caliber providers of content. And I think most of us in the Jewish world now, and I think in the other parts of the world too, are saying, wait a minute, I just want to do it. And I'm going to be flexible. And maybe my cat is going to, I don't have a cat, but it happened to one of my team members. My cat's going to walk across the screen and it's going to just be, and we're going to laugh about it, and we're going to be flexible, and we're going to play. So I think that sort of to start with that permission is really important. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go into some, what I like to call tachlis, very like some of the specific things that are useful for you, I hope. And feel free to, again, unmute yourself if you have a question, or write it in the chat box. I'm going to just kind of go through some of the tools and things that I think are useful. There have been, I'm going to see if I can figure out how to let that person. There have been a lot of, there's so many posts, on Facebook, and so many emails that you're all getting. And so I, from all the different Jewish organizations, everyone's trying to offer this. So I'm hoping that I've taken a lot of those things and put them together into one document that hopefully won't stress you out, that will just kind of limit things so that you can say, oh, this is some stuff here that's useful. And if it's useful, great. And you can, if you want something different, you can come to me or you can come to any one of our team. We are all here for you. So how do I gather? Let's start with the very basic of what should I do this year? How do I gather? And so we're all using Zoom right now. Maybe this is your first time on Zoom, but I guarantee you there's someone, Doris's question, is there concern that Zoom's bandwidth will crash? Possibly. I'm hoping that someone at Zoom is aware that that's a Seder thing and we're all going to be, the only thing I can think of is that we're all going to kind of stagger with the time zones. I hope. I have noticed that like every Jewish organization, or a lot of them, are using Zoom on Friday nights. And I was thinking the same thing. Like, do you think Zoom crashes on Fridays? I hope not. I think we may see the same challenge on Easter Sunday for our Christian brothers and sisters. We're going to do our best. If you have a family member who has a pro account, or you want to spend the $12 or $15, I think it is, for a pro account, you'll be happier in the long run. It's you can, if you have a free account, you can log into someone else's pro account really easily, but you can't. The person who starts the meeting should have a pro account. Otherwise, you're limited to 40 minutes, and that seems that would mean you get kicked out after 40 minutes. And even if your Seder isn't 40 minutes long, you might want to stay and chat. So there's also FaceTime and Skype. WhatsApp has video. I know that these days people are concerned about Zoom security, and if you are, feel free to use a different tool. But let me just give you a couple of my own tips that it's a good idea to have one member of your family who takes care of the tech and one member of your family who takes care of the Seder. That's something that we've discovered even with our own services. You'll notice there's always somebody who's in charge of the tech and someone who's leading the minyan. So we're trying really hard to learn those lessons. Test your tech. Make sure you know how everything works. And just like I did at the beginning of this little session, start your Seder by helping everybody to find their mute button, helping everybody to be involved in the Seder and to know. And one of the things that unfortunately we have learned is that Zoom does not lend itself to communal singing. And so every so often we'll do something with our students where we will unmute everyone and ask them all to say something. It's a cacophony of sound. It's delightful and also a little bit trying on the ears. And so we are definitely, I always say, to sort of unmute yourself, take your turn, and then pass that on. Do both the tech and the Seder leader have to be in the same house? No, they do not. It's a delightful thing about Zoom, for example, if you have a tech person who's a grandchild, perhaps who's in a faraway place, they could be the one to set up the Zoom and bring you in, you log in, and they still can run all the things. Zoom also lets you create a co-host, so people who have different kinds of controls with sharing their screen and things like that. So there are lots of different ways that you can work together, even if you're not in the same place. That is the technology. I'm going to share a couple of funny things along the way. This one came by my screen today. This is the Last Supper. Whether it's a Seder or not, we could have a whole different class on, but I think it's really a funny graphic to see that all of the participants in the last Seder here on Zoom. So everybody's doing this, not just us. All right, so let's start with also the idea of you're thinking, but hey, wait a minute, we really are going to be on our own. I don't want to Zoom with my family, or I'm not able to, or the time zones don't work out. We're having that challenge in our family, that I don't want to start my Seder at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't want to start it at 7 o'clock at night, but I'd like to include my West Coast and my East Coast family. I'm working on that. But so what if I am going to be on my own? That's okay, right? Like I said at the beginning, it's okay to not do anything. It's okay to do this on your own, or to do whatever. I will only say, and maybe it's just because I'm your rabbi, but that the lessons and the ideals and the ideas of the Passover Seder and of the story of Pesach are so special and beautiful and important that it's worth spending some time on your own thinking about those ideas. And that too can be a really powerful Seder experience. Again, it's not the one that you might have had we not been in this situation, and it might not be the one I hope that you would have next year. But it's okay to have this year's experience be a different one than in the past. So hold on one second. Let's just go back to this. All right. So that being said, if you don't have want someone to go to, or someone in your family who wants to lead a Seder, perhaps you're used to coming to the family Seder at Am Shalom. I love that Seder. We are hosting Seders. Rabbi Steve and I are each hosting a Seder for the congregation from our own homes. So what are those? What does that look like? So we're going to be doing it via Zoom. Rabbi Steve and I, each from our own homes, him on the first night, me on the second night. We will send you login information when you email us to get it. That's partly because we want to make sure that we're doing a good job of dealing with our tech. And so we're trying to sort of simplify, instead of publishing the information, we're asking people to register a little bit. Again, security. So that's available. And Rabbi Steve actually texted me before this class to make sure that I shared that with you. So I'm excited to welcome the congregation into my home on the second night. Both of the Seders will take place starting at 5:30. Okay, so, I see this part of the screen did not get big and pretty, but here it is. All right, so let's say you are going to do it by yourself, or you're going to do it, you just want to run your own Seder. You don't want to come to one of our Seders. I want to use a Haggadah. And oh my goodness, you know, I don't have all of the Haggadot that I used to have, or I don't know, not everybody has them in their homes, and we're going to connect virtually and we don't have them, or we're only going to do it with the people who are in our house. Maybe you're a family of, and you know, you want to do it that way. And either way, I'm going to offer you a list of some of my favorite ones. And again, I will share this document with you all. In fact, you know what I'm going to do right now? Oh, that's not going to work. I will share it with you all at the end of this in the chat. Because I have links here, but I'm actually going to do, I think it's going to work. I'm not. So I'm going to, give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to open some of these links, which is what I meant to do in advance. I apologize for that. And it won't let me do that. There are a lot of different places where you can go and you can download a Haggadah. And wrong buttons. Here I go. You can download a Haggadah, and some of them you can download to a PDF and then share your screen, just like I'm doing. So for example, here is Haggadah's RS. This is a really well-known Haggadah, A Different Night. Maybe you've used it. It's one of my favorites. This year, they're being so generous, and they're offering free downloads of their Haggadah in a PDF. And so you can look at, you can click on it, and you'll see that it comes up for you in a PDF. And this is so nice because then everyone at their house could download the Haggadah, and they could each have the same thing. So you all can see them scrolling through, and everyone could be sharing this, and you could all have it on the same page. And you still have to prep, right? In particular, this Haggadah, look, it's 92 pages. You're not going to use every bit of this Haggadah, but you have it, and you could easily share that with everybody. If you have a younger family, you might like PJ Library's Haggadah. They have a really nice, and it looks like this. This is theirs, and you would set your screen up better, but they have a really nice Haggadah that people are using. And they created it last year, and they shipped it out to people. And they've done a really good job of offering their materials. There also are other ways to do this. There is a website called haggadot.com, and here it is. And what's really cool about this website is that you could make your own Haggadah. You can take the clips that they have. They have all sorts of different, like all the elements of the Seder, and then you can put them together. But you don't even have to. They have like a gazillion options of things. Here's a coloring book Haggadah. Here's a favorites. Here's a comedy one. And there's a lot of different ones here. And what's fun about that is you could put people in your family to work to find their favorite one in advance. You could send out an email tomorrow that says, you're all coming to my Seder, find your favorite Haggadah. I'm taking nominations for the one you want to use. Sharon just asked me if you could send it ahead of time. I would absolutely send it out ahead of time so that everybody's prepared, right? Depending on how many people you have on your virtual call, it might be challenging to get everybody on the same page right away. So, and if you don't want to share your screen, you want to see everybody's faces, you could say, everybody download this. And then, you know, one option is, and lots of people have multiple devices. So like I have my iPad here. I could have the Haggadah on my iPad. We could all have it, or even on our phones. And then we could all be seeing each other's faces on the Zoom. So that's another way to do this. So you can see there's so many options here in haggadot.com, and lots of really great things for people to look at. So you can look through all of those different options. So, and then, so that's one way to do this. I like this little graphic of Moses wearing his mask. Thought you'd share that. So that's the text for your online Haggadah. So what do I need to have? What do I need to buy? Little tricky these days. What do I need to collect for my Seder? So remember, let's always remember that the Israelites left Egypt with almost nothing, right? They took their flour and their water, and they mixed up their bread, and they put it on their backs, and it baked. That's the story we tell, right? It baked quickly. They had no time to rise. we too are living in the narrow places of Egypt right now, the narrow straits. We are trying to make do with what we have, and that's good. I think that challenges our creativity and our ingenuity. And so now let's start with the idea that, first of all, you could look up lists of how to host a Seder. Maybe you've never hosted one before because you've always gone to someone else's home, a family member, a loved one, or maybe you've gone to a communal Seder and you've never done this in your own space. So you start with a checklist, but understand that that is a guide, that if it says, you need 14 forks and you only have one, but that's what you're going to use. But what I would say is to take some time over the next few days, because we have a week approximately, and think about what things you think are really necessary for your Seder. What things do you think would be useful to have as part of whatever experience you're trying to create, and which things can go. So like I said before, we aren't going to have a shank bone in our house, and I'm going to challenge my children to go around the house and find items that they think could fit the bill for each of those things, and the shank bone is one of them that I'm looking forward to hearing what their creative ideas are, because my biggest creative idea is to draw a picture of a shank bone and put it on the Seder plate. But I am sure that they're going to go through their toys and their stuff and find something that represents what the shank bone represents, right? It represents the Paschal sacrifice. So they might say, we're going to find something. Oh, see, here I am brainstorming just for them. I might find something that represents a different kind of sacrifice. We're making a sacrifice. Maybe that's a place where we would put a bottle of hand sanitizer if you had some, because we are sacrificing, and that represents so much of what's happening now. So along with that idea, and it's a little later in the presentation, but what I just said makes me think about something that I planned to share with you a little later, is this idea that in every generation we add to the Seder. In every generation, our Seder is different, right? We've all read stories of what kind of Seder happened in the concentration camps, in the ghettos. We know what Seder looked like during the Spanish Inquisition, right? Our people have always found ways to create something that fits the bill of telling the story of the Exodus. But we have also added items to the Seder to guide us, to give us, to bring meaning from what this ancient story that we know still applies to us today. And so when we take that story, we have to say, what am I going to add? And over the years, I've seen so many additions, in particular to the Seder plate. The famous one, of course, is the orange, which many people have added onto their Seder plates to represent that juicy vitality of Judaism, to represent marginalized Jews, people who didn't always have their place. But I've seen other additions, like a banana to represent refugees, and fair trade chocolate. That's the one my father brought to the table one year. I think he just wanted some extra chocolate on the table, but fair trade chocolate to represent workers, and the way that the way that workers around the world may be not treated in the way that they should be. And we've looked at oppressed peoples and we've added. So maybe this is the year that we add something to our Seder plates to honor our medical professionals. Maybe we add something on there that helps us to remember that there are people who aren't sitting at Seder tables because they are working in hospitals, and they are working as police officers, and they are working in all the different professions that are helping people that we always sort of take for granted, but I think we're really lifting up right now in this period of time. So that's what you would need. So let's keep going, because I'm looking at the time also. All right, so I'm looking for some fun stuff to add to my Seder. I need some new material, Rabbi. So I'm excited that there are all sorts of fun things. I actually really love. I'm going to take you over there and show it to you if I could get it to go. Hello, it's not going. Oh, there we go. I really love this one because I think it's really fun. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're going to be using it in our own house this year, because this is just pictures of the Passover story, and it's 10 scenes. And here they all are, but they come up and they're very readable and they're very shareable. And so this is a great way to tell the story of the Exodus in a very simple way. right? So this is a PJ Library offering. And then of course, I'm always a big fan of all of the videos. There's so many fun videos of different content of the sort of the parody songs. And then I'm also gonna show you that if maybe you are concerned about your learning, oh, I forgot to share my sound, so you're not gonna hear my sound. Hold on a second, I'm gonna go back. Hello, I'm gonna share my sound. Oh, it didn't work. There we go. So you could even learn your questions in karaoke. You have to figure out how to stop that. There we go. Okay. Stop that. So there are lots of ways that we can do that. Okay, so now I'm coming back. Zoom is very interesting. I'm learning all sorts of things. Here I go. Back to my stuff. The site for the river story, Sharon, was at PJ Library's website. And I'm gonna also, again, share this document with all of you. In fact, I'm gonna do it right now. Here, see, I'm gonna say share, and I'm gonna get you all this document. And some of this will also be linked on the Shalom website, so you can access it. We're gonna put a more limited options. Okay, so what are some other ideas? You're like, oh, those were good, Rabbi, but I want some things that maybe aren't digital resources. We've been sitting in front of screens. I need something else. Okay, so you could write your own 6-word Passover poetry. Assign everybody, say to everybody at the table, hey guys, Passover, Exodus, freedom. Write a 6-word poem or 6-word story. You could brainstorm and experiment with foods that are symbolizing sweetness and bitterness. And you could have those conversations in advance and you could put them on the table, or at the Seder, you could say to everybody, what are you eating? What should we go? Let's go get something from the cabinet. Let's add it to our Seder. You could use the things that you have in your house. Toys, stuffed animals, Legos. You could be creative with what you put on your table. Our table always has little figurines on it. We have Moses and stuff like that, but you could be creative. We always joke that the dinosaur figurines make it into the Exodus, and that seems a little silly, but that's just what our family does every year. And of course, if you want to get really fancy, I like to say it that way, you could actually take the Haggadah, which has 15 steps, right? Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas, yeah, that's right. There are 15 steps in the Seder. You could actually take each of those 15 steps, and let's say you have a virtual guest list, you assign them. I saw one really cool family, it was very organized, where they had created a Google Doc with each section of the Seder, and they sent it out to all of their family and friends and asked them to each sign up for their section. That takes a lot of planning. Those are, that's a dedicated crowd, but could be a lot of fun for a group of families getting together, a group of adults getting together, and to be really aware of everybody's what everybody's bringing. So I just sent you a link here in the chat, and you can click on it and open it, and you'll be able to see this document. But we will also put it, I can send it to you in an email if you'd like as well. Here's a social distancing Seder. I thought that was kind of amusing. Maybe not. Okay, I don't want to follow any of those Haggadot. That's nice, Rabbi Phyllis, but I heard you say that the Haggadah is just a guide. Maybe you've heard me say that in the past, because I have. And so you're like, I don't want to do it this way. Instead, I just want to like have a nice meal and a conversation. That's good. So here are some ideas for that. Maybe you ask everybody to bring something that's not related to the Haggadah specifically, but something that they want to share, a favorite poem. So maybe they found a piece of art. Maybe it's one of these cartoons I'm sharing with you. Maybe somebody wants to share my list of Passover jokes, which, and by the way, on Sunday, April 5th is International Passover Joke Day. That's a thing. And I will be all day long on Facebook sharing all of my favorite Passover jokes. You know, like, what do you call lice on a bald man's head? Homeless, those kinds of things. They're delightful if you're not my children. What shoes do you wear during the plague of frogs? Open-toed. How does Moses make coffee? He brews it. Okay, so anyway, I'll come back to those if you haven't, you can't like You're not supposed to throw up on your screen, so I'm sorry if I'm ruining your appetite. But anyway, some people really like my jokes. So you could have people bring things. You could just have a discussion about the themes of the holiday. There are, this is a link that you'll see for 10 great discussion topics, but it's easy to come up with discussion topics. What do you want to talk about? Who are your heroes? What are your favorite memories? How did we get here? What's our family story? What's our family history? How are we where we are today? And how does this bit of our lives right now, this enforced stay-at-home order, how do we add this into our tale of who we are as Jews, as Americans, or maybe some of you are not, I'm even in America. How do we tell that story as a new chapter in who we are? So that's one way. Remember that you don't have to even think about using the table, right? The table is completely unnecessary. You could do the whole Seder on, on the couch, on the floor. You could climb in bed and you could watch the Rugrats Passover episode. You could say the blessings and then you could go over to the table and eat dinner, or you could even skip the table entirely and you could have a Seder picnic. Right? You could just have your Seder and the picnic. One year, actually many years ago, my family set up a tent in the middle of our living room floor, and we did our Seder inside the tent. It was a little challenging. I'm not sure that I'm willing to put the tent up this year, but we'll see if the children convince me that we should do it. And it was a lot of fun because we just hung out in the tent. All right, so someone just asked me, am I going to cover virtual Afikoman finding? Thank you, Steve. That's a great question. And I hadn't actually put any resources together here specifically for that, but I'm gonna say that there actually are a lot of fun ideas for Afikoman finding. So one of them is, and one of my friends is doing this right now on Facebook, she's actually having everybody take a piece of paper and write on the piece of paper their favorite kind of chametz. So like she's writing the word, I have a piece of paper here, I'll show you. She's writing the word bagel on a piece of paper, and then she's taken it and hidden it in a place in her room, in a room in her house that it's like you can see it but not really see it, and then sharing the photograph with everybody else. So then they have to look at the photo and it's a little bit like a Where's Waldo or one of those hide and find pictures, and they have to find in the picture that piece, that word of chametz. Other people are using a website called Breakout EDU, which has a bunch of different, hold on one second, I'm making the Cantor, who just joined us, a co-host. The Breakout EDU has actually some online puzzles, and we've been using puzzles like that in person at our Seder, where you have to solve some quizzes, and then you unlock all of the locks. Some people are foregoing the concept of finding the Afikoman and instead using that as a chance to use some of the fun online, like a Jeopardy game, or there's a website called Kahoot that people are using to run online trivia contests. And when you use those trivia contests, then you have to find it, whoever wins is the one who has found the Afikoman. So those are some of the ways that people are handling the virtual Afikoman finding, which is, I think, a little bit challenging. So I'm gonna keep going just a little bit more. So some people would say, hey, the world is totally out of control. I think I covered a little bit of this. How dare we even have a Seder, right? But I really think that, and I love this quote, this was actually in the New York Times. It says, indeed, I've come to think of Passover as the stem cell of the Jewish people, a reserve of core source material with a proven ability to generate new meaning and solace in circumstances even more extreme than what we are living through now. So I would argue that you're all here because you want to find this meaning, and so I appreciate that from you. And so, as I've said from the beginning, I don't want to put any pressure on you to create a perfect, amazing, awesome, special Seder, but I do want to encourage you that I think there's a lot of value and meaning in what we're doing. So with that being said, the world is out of control. So let's make sure that we also think of others when we do set our Seder table, right? Like I said, you can add certain things to your to your Seder plate. But you also can think of some of the things that we've always historically gone to. The Religious Action Center has always provided us with some wonderful social justice resources. And Trua, which is another Jewish organization that does a lot of social justice work, has a bunch of Passover like supplements and things that they add. And then actually, and you know what, Steve, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about online Afikoman, but this is pretty cool, and I'm going to share this. And I know that Patty, you're really involved with American Jewish World Service, and this is a pretty cool thing that they're doing. So American Jewish World Service. Oh wait, we don't need the splash screen. They have created an Afikoman Hunt on their website. So I love that this connects social justice and it connects this idea of using this online. So here's a clue. It says follow the map and click the westernmost point and then scroll down to reveal clue 2. So we're gonna click on the westernmost point here and it's gonna take me, I hope, I think it worked. And again, I'm gonna learn about this and then I get clue number 2. So this is a really cool tool that they've created. Then it says, head over to Asia to close in on your treasure. Your next clue is in this country. Just unscramble the letters. So what is the letters of A-U-M-R-B? I think that's Burma. So we have to go back. I think we have to go back a page. Anyway, you can play with this, but you can see this is kind of a fun activity for, excuse me, for a family. Okay, I lost my screen. For a family to engage in. And it's kind of a cool way to do something completely different. Okay, so, oh, here's another one. I put the wine for Elijah outside since we're in quarantine. That's what the caption says. I think that's funny. Okay, sort of the kind of the final thing on my agenda, and then I'm gonna open this up to some other questions, is what do I do about the food? Right? What do I do about the food? I had a conversation. I've had conversations with lots of people. First of all, we're offering, I think there's still time to order through Jordan's Food of Distinction, a member of the congregation. We sent that out to you earlier. I think the deadline still exists. And you can order your whole Seder meal. That's a great way to do this. They'll deliver even the shank bone that I don't have in the freezer. It's all good. You would get all the pieces of the Seder. You can also order from a restaurant or you can, do that. But you also can do this the way that you would be serving any meal. You can say, well, what am I going to eat? Okay, so I'm going to have, chicken, or I'm going to have a hamburger, or we're going to put butter on matzah and call that a meal, right? It's all kind of depends on what you, remembering back to the beginning, sort of what's your why and what are the things that really you feel that you need or want to have, and what are the things that you can let go of this year. And maybe the food is in that category and maybe it's not. I'm going to tell you all a secret that I should not reveal to the 27 people here, so maybe it's not so secret, but I have never made matzo balls before. And so I am going to go on to FaceTime with my mother, and she is going to teach me how to make matzo balls. She swears it's very easy, but I've never done it before. And I realized that my children would tell me that it wasn't Passover without matzo balls. I don't know if that's true or not, but I was able to add to one of my grocery orders some matzo ball mix, and so I plan to make matzo balls for the first time ever. Will be an experiment for me, and hopefully they won't hate them, or they'll just make me appreciate my mother all the more. But that's something that I felt was important to have at our Seder table, but I'm less worried about having a brisket or having even, I don't make gefilte fish, maybe you do, but for my family, there's a jar of gefilte fish if they want to eat it. So some of those things I've tried to really parse out what are important. Another fun idea would be to have everybody you're welcoming at your virtual Seder, each of them make something that's important to them, a special recipe, almost like, how we do those traveling meals where you would go to one person's house for the appetizers. Each person can share what they're serving at their table, and they could hold it up and show it and then maybe share the recipe. Maybe you've never made it because your great aunt always makes the mandel bread. Maybe they share it in advance and everybody does a bake along and has the same mandel bread, having learned now how to make it. the other question is people have asked me a lot is, what am I going to do about all that extra pasta? Like, I'm used to getting rid of my chametz, but do I get rid of it? What do I do about my Passover observance? Listen, go easy on yourself. Do what you have to do. Do what's right for you and for your family. But in my family, we're going to play our usual game of chametz or not chametz. I hold up all the items and we're going to sort them out into 2 cabinets. We're going to put a big piece of tape over the cabinet that is the chametz, and we're not going to eat it. And usually I'm pretty strict about not going back to the Cheerios during Passover, but I have a feeling that I may be pushed a little harder by some of the children in my house to go back to eating Cheerios a little earlier. That's something that each of us has to make a decision for ourselves. But I'm going to sort of put out the rabbinic idea that, in fact, as your rabbi, I say, be gentle on yourself in your observance, and how you do this and how you judge yourself. It will be okay. I promise it will be okay, whatever you choose to do. One of the other things that I made a note of is every year when I do this chametz or not chametz game with my children is there's a third bin, which is let's donate that. And sometimes it's, oh, wow, look, we found 6 cans of beans and we don't need 6 cans of beans right now. So let's put 3 of them in the food pantry and put 3 of them in the proper appropriate space. Well, this year, most of our food pantries aren't accepting donations, although we are still collecting donations at Am Shalom because the lake down in Lakeview, they're accepting our food. But if you don't want to go out, that's okay. Put it to the side maybe for after this experience, or maybe you say, you know what, I look at how much food I have in my house. I feel that I'm in a position where I could make a donation, and you could go online and you could make a donation to Mazon or to any other organization that helps with feeding people in our own communities. The last thing I'm going to share, and I'll put this in the chat box right now, this link. This is my friend Tina Wasserman. She actually came to Am Shalom many, many years ago. She's a cook, a chef, and she is offering a cooking class today at 2 o'clock Central Time or 3 o'clock Eastern on how to cook with fewer ingredients for Passover. So as somebody who's a chef, her whole job is to make do with what she has, but also to she's used to having expansive things at her disposal. And she's going to sort of show us how to cook in a little bit smaller way. So I'm going to turn my sharing off right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of open this up to sort of questions or comments. Anybody have something that I covered that you want to comment on, or something that perhaps I didn't cover that you were hoping I would? And you can either throw something in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and kind of wave your hand around. Anybody? Arona, go for it.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi.
I just wanted to make sure is the chat 40 minutes and then it's over?
Oh, if you have a private Zoom account, you mean?
Oh, no, I don't have a private Zoom account.
Okay,
but
so
if we're hopefully going to be with our kids on Zoom, can you just go forever? Or
yeah,
is
so
there
your
a limit?
kid, right? So whoever sets up the Zoom account, whoever's the hosting account, like we are right now, the hosting account, you can see it says Am Shalom School. We have a paid account, and so I can actually hold a meeting up to 24 hours long. I don't recommend that, by the way. But if you have a free account, because Zoom still offers free accounts, those have a time limit on them. So you want to make sure that person who's in charge of your Zoom account is of your Zoom leader is somebody. And so if your kids are doing it, I would bet
I'll talk to you later.
They have an idea of that. So do. Okay. Any other anyone else? Yes, of course. Oh, Patty, you can. Oh, look, you unmuted yourself. Good job.
Hi. I am technically limited, but I have a grandson who is technically able. Could I send him the Haggadah sections we want to read to make it available to all of the family and still be the host myself?
Absolutely. You know, one of the questions that Sharon asked me a little earlier and is so true. You don't have to the nicest thing about it is you don't all have to be in the same room to do anything, right? The technology can be controlled if you send what you want and listen, you say to that that kid, okay, I'm going to tell you when to scroll down. I'm going to tell you when to turn the page. I'm going to run the Seder, but you're going to do the tech for me. And
Right.
it could, by the way, even be a third person. There could be one who's running the technology, one who's running what's on the screens, and one who's doing the talking, right? You could do this. You could really share the wealth. And it's a great way to lift up the skills of maybe the younger members of your family who might not have been as invested in the Seder in the past. They might be saying, oh, I do this because Bubby wants me to, and every year I show up, but I just show up. But maybe this year it's, oh, wow, this is really meaningful to me. I think that one of the things we're really learning about this whole experience of doing things virtually like this is we're realizing how important these connections are. And I think people of all generations are coming to really appreciate all of those things. So if I have to find silver linings, which I'm really working hard to do all the time, this is one of them. And so I think it's a great way to involve those, all the different members of your family for sure. Thank you. Sharon, did you have a question? I see you.
How do people raise their hands?
Well, so one way is what you just did, right? Like people, it's especially when you're looking at the whole screen. So it's important to know that at the top of your screen, assuming you're on a computer, there's a little button that says speaker view. And if you click that speaker view, or you would, if you're looking at the screen and there's a lot of little boxes, you are in gallery view. So if you're in gallery view, it'll say speaker view. If you're in speaker view, it might say gallery view. When you click on that, you toggle between seeing just one person on your screen and seeing all the people on your screen. So I have it, so right now I can see all of you, well, most of you, in one screen. And when you raise your hand, I can see it. There is a function using the participant list where you can actually push the button that says raise hand, and that does work as well. I like, especially with a more informal group or a family group, like I'm gonna raise my hand, and then also giving people the power to mute and unmute themselves lets me know that someone wants to talk. Does that help?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. So Doris, I know I saw you unmuting yourself, which means I know you want to say something. So I'm gonna hear your question.
Well, I had another Zoom question. Where in Zoom do you put those audio visuals so that everyone will see them at the same time? You're obviously not holding the book in front of your computer.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. I hold the book. We taught a class of the younger students where we had them all draw something, and this was one of our drawings, and hold it up. No, when you are the host of an event, so somebody in your family who's the, that's why I said to sort of learn your tech and have your sense. But the idea being that there's a button at the bottom as a host that you don't have as a participant that says share screen. And so what I was doing was sharing with you another part of my screen on the computer. And so I'm sharing my screen with you. You see what I see on my screen in that moment. And that's how you can share a video with people, and you can share different parts of your screen. And it takes a little bit of practice to get that right, to share here and to know what you want to be sharing. As you saw, for a while, I was sharing only a portion of my screen. And then remember I said I wanted to show you a video, but I was in the middle and I hadn't enabled sound, so I had to go back and start over. It's all a learning process that we're all kind of engaging in, but it is something that everyone needs to, you would want to spend some time learning in advance before you did it. Also using members of your family who have different skills, who have more experience, getting them on board to be your helpers and say, I have the Haggadah, but I need your help to get it out to everybody. Okay. Also, by the way, there's a pretty simple way. You could email it out. We're going to be sending out in the next couple of days, I think, a PDF, a Haggadah that we've created that we've commissioned Susan Klingman to help us create, and it's really great. And we're going to put it out there, and we're going to email it out to the congregation. You could send that out to everybody and tell them to print it out or look at it on their phones or on their iPads or another device, and then everybody just has it. You don't have to share your screen. That's another way to handle the Haggadah sharing. Carol asks, can only the host share? The answer is Yes, if you have it set up that way. I recommend that setting as a security thing, although if you have a smaller group, you could make it so that every participant can share. The problem is if, for example, I were sharing and you wanted to share, you could kick me off the sharing. And so it's just a little complicated. So we like to keep, I personally, as a person who likes to be in charge and in control, I keep it so that only the host can share. And Maddie makes a great point over here. She says, you could just email that Haggadah out and put everybody on speakerphone. You don't have to see everybody's face, right? All the different levels of this are available to us, and we don't have to be, it doesn't have to be perfect. And we don't have to do it we don't have to do it there's no rules. There's no have to do anything. I wanted to provide you with some opportunities, some ideas, and some general encouragement for all of you. So here's what I'm going to do right now, because I'm realizing that we're going to send this document out when we send out our Haggadah to everybody, but I'm realizing that some of you might not be on that list from our congregation. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put my email address here in the chat. It's phyllis.s@amshalom.com. You can write that down. And if you don't get it, or if you just want to send me an email, I will be happy to share this document with you, a link to this document. And then you'll be able to click on the links that are inside of the document. Somebody else asked, when will the Am Shalom Haggadah be available? I believe it's ready and is going to be emailed out in the next day or so. But I'm not promising you, but we are going to be sending it out. There'll be a link on our website to it as well. We've never been in the practice of sending out a Haggadah to the congregation before. These are unprecedented times, so we are all learning as well. So the other question someone asked, if singing is the most important element to me, is there a way to mitigate the noise that I mentioned? I actually have Cantor Markowitz on here, and I'm going to let her answer that question and talk a little bit about music as well, since she's here, and I'm so happy to have her. Oh, she froze a little bit. Okay, maybe I'll talk for her while she unfreezes. Oh, there you are.
Unfrozen. Okay, so this is actually one of the challenges. Is sometimes your signal is not strong, or it's intermittent, and what can you do? So I do funny freezing faces and spaces. Well, first of all, I wanted to let you know, just in case Rabbi Phyllis didn't mention it, we are preparing a YouTube playlist of some Seder songs, both traditional and not. So just in case you want to sort of prep some Seder songs or just have some fun singing and preparing for the holiday, that's also going to be available to you. And post that, there are a few things that you can do if you are using a laptop or a desktop version of Zoom to help the sound of your music and of the music that you're making. The one thing that you can't do is all sing together as a group with everybody unmuted. That unfortunately is not possible given this technology, and actually any of the technologies that we have. It's not possible on FaceTime or Facebook Messenger, or it just isn't there yet. But what we've been doing is designating a particular music leader, and that person leads the music as and the other members that are signed on are just muted for that. But we encourage everyone to sing along, and it's actually pretty amazing. I'm not sure if we have anyone in the choir still with us. I saw Aileen's here, but Ted Schaffner is in Kol Zimra Jewish Community Choir, and they've actually been holding rehearsals, and in which are it's sort of in a teaching style of like repeat after me. And so the leader will sing something, and then the group muted sort of sings back to them. And that's kind of how they've been working on some of the music and holding some rehearsals.
Thank you, Cantor. And I noticed also that you pointed out that we'll be sharing along with our Haggadah a playlist of songs that,
Yes.
that Cantor Staple and Cantor Markowitz have put together. And so we're working really hard to share resources. And I think that sometimes we feel like there's so many things out there. We're trying to give you some of our favorite stuff and sort of filter it for you, but know that there's a ton of stuff out there. And so you also can sort of take a few minutes on the internet and look around or ask us, and we'll be happy to share. Maddie, are you raising your hand or are you just talking to somebody else over there?
I have one more thing to share, which is if anyone wants sort of one-on-one time, needs a little help musically, I'm happy to sort of help with whatever that process, whether it's doing your settings on your computer to make sure that that's possible, or you know, so let me know. I'll put my email in the chat.
All right, friends, thank you so much for joining us today for this. I hope this was helpful. Again, you have my email address, phylliss@amshalom.com. Thank you for the applause. I appreciate it. I am happy to see all of your faces. We really would love to see you at one of our Seders, Rabbi Steve's on Wednesday and mine on Thursday, or to hear the stories of your Seder. One of my favorite things to do is to take screenshots of all the people. It looks like the Brady Bunch, right, with all the different faces. I love to see that, and I'm definitely planning to take those family photos and add them to our photo album this year, so that I remember, even though I sometimes say we'd like to forget tough times, I definitely know there's a value in even remembering things that are hard and being able to say, wow, we went through that. So I definitely recommend that you take some screenshots, some family photos. And so I see one, Sharon, you want to say something?
Just one other technological, isn't there a way that we're supposed to be able to chat with one person privately?
Yes, actually you are. That's how you're messaging with me privately right now.
Yes, but you're the only one I can do that. It says I can either talk to everybody or just to you.
Yes, I have it. Well, I have it set up to do everyone publicly and me privately. I have it set up that way.
Oh, so you said it. So I have
So there's a bunch of different security functions in Zoom, and one of them, although this group didn't really need that, but it's a way to prevent bullying in school settings. And so my settings are set up that way. So I apologize because we don't want the kids to be able to private message each other in a negative way. That's why I have it set that way. Sorry, Sharon.
That's good for you.
All right, thank you all so much. I wish you a Zisin Pesach, a Chag Sameach. We're here for you in lots of ways. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions. And I know Cantor Markowitz as well. So see you all soon. Chag Sameach. Bye.
Like Sameach, bye.